These next couple of weeks will be very, very busy here on Capitol Hill.
Yeah. Daniela Diaz, we appreciate it so much. Thank you. Let's talk more about this and what is in store with CNN political commentators, Republican former Congressman from Pennsylvania, Charlie Dent, and Patty Solis Doyle, former presidential campaign manager for Hillary Clinton. We appreciate both of you being here. Thank you so much. Let's start with the Build Back Better Act here. Patty, I want to start with you. What is the weight of what the content, what's in the bill on this side, and the passage of it on the other? In other words, does the passage of it do enough to help boost this president's approval rating, which is at about only 44% right now?
I think it does, actually, Christy. I think the issue has been really in messaging for the Democrats. You know, Democrats control Congress, they control the White House, and as we head into the midterm elections, you know, the American people expect them to deliver. And in my view, and I think in the Democrats' view, they have been delivering, whether it's on the pandemic, 70% of Americans are now fully vaccinated, job creation is growing, the bipartisan infrastructure bill, you know, bipartisan is sort of like a dirty word back in the Trump administration, and now the passage in the House of the Build Back Better bill. And I think most of the conversation has been on inter-party disputes, price tags of these pieces of legislation, instead of what's actually in the bill and how it will impact the American people. And I think that if we go into what's in it and how it helps people, I think that you know, there will be a change in the president's approval rating, and the American people will start feeling it.
Congressman Dent, we know that Democrats are reaching out to some female Republicans in the Senate, hoping to garner some support. Do we have any gauge of the level of receptiveness to that support, or is it just, I mean, are you seeing something in Washington, D.C. that maybe we haven't seen in a long time? I mean, the partisanship is at an all-time high.
Well, yeah, certainly the partisanship is at an all-time high. I was pleased to see that they were able to come to an agreement. Congress was able to come to an agreement on the infrastructure bill, and frankly, they should have passed it back in August. It would have been even more bipartisan. But because the Democrats chose to pander to the progressives, they held the thing up for a few months and made that victory more bittersweet than it ought to have been. On the Build Back Better, this is a totally partisan exercise, and I probably would disagree with Patty. I don't think it's going to help the Democrats very much because that bill is bloated. You know, I listened to Penn Wharton and the Committee for a Responsible Federal Government. They say this is going to cost between $4.6 to $4.9 trillion. We just received a CBO score 2 days ago, and boy, there are a lot of games and gimmicks. Very deceptive, and I would argue dishonest. In terms of how they scored this thing. And I think when the more people learn about this, the more they're going to be concerned. Even though there are some popular provisions in there, I think the Democrats are missing the point. What's on the front of mind for voters, it's inflation, it's shortages, you know, there's border mayhem. They witnessed an Afghanistan fiasco. This is all on top of $6 trillion in COVID spending. And so to think that this is somehow going to solve their problems, I really seriously doubt it. I think it'll actually make their problems worse. A legislative victory does not necessarily translate into a political victory a year later.
Okay, so Congressman, I want to stay with you for a moment here because I want to show some polls as of late that might have some surprising numbers to people. First of all, a CNN poll back in September showed and asked, will Republicans have a better chance winning in 2024 with former President Trump or with someone else? This was a poll to Republicans, I should point out. Republicans polled said 51% said, yeah, Trump, but 49% said someone else. And then a more recent poll by the Des Moines Register asked Republicans if they were more aligned with former President Trump or with the GOP. Look at these numbers. 26% said Trump, 61% said the GOP. We know that Chris Christie has already said he'd run against President Trump. There are questions about Ron DeSantis and what he's doing. How open do you think the door is? Is it cracked? Is it open more to allow space for potentially another candidate in 2024?
Christy, I do think the door is somewhat open. The question is, will someone run through it? Republicans, to my Republican friends, I say 2020 and 2021 were very good years for Republican candidates who were not named Donald Trump. What part of Donald Trump's unpopularity aren't they seeing here? And you look what Glenn Youngkin just did in Virginia, where he clearly distanced himself from President Trump, talked about issues that were more relevant to the lives of their voters, particularly as it related to schools. That was something that I thought was important. But Republicans shouldn't delude themselves either. The reason why they're going to probably have a decent year in 2022 is because of President Joe Biden's sinking approval rating. That's it. Now, to the extent that they can make the election about the Biden and Democrats, all the better. To the extent Donald Trump injects himself into the conversation, that will only hurt Republicans. So Republicans are better off without Donald Trump more so than they are with him, by far.
Patty, I want to ask you, even though you're on the other side of this fence, we're seeing a shift, it seems, that is evident between Governor DeSantis of Florida and President Trump, the former President Trump. Donald Trump used to sing his praises. It almost seems like something has shifted and he is not so solid behind DeSantis right now. Do you think that he sees DeSantis as a threat?
I think he does. And I'm not in the business of advising Republicans, but I agree with Charlie on this. I think if Republicans sort of distance themselves from Trump, they will fare much better. Clearly, that's what Glenn Youngkin did in Virginia, and he won. I just don't think that Donald Trump is, going to play ball with that strategy in terms of national races and local races. I think he very much still has a strong hold on the Republican base. I think he still very much wants to be part of the narrative. I think he wants to take credit for any wins that the Republicans may make in 2022, and I think he wants to run for president again in 2024. So he will be a huge presence in the midterm elections. And so while I agree with Charlie and his assessment, I just don't think Donald Trump has bought into it, nor will he. Congressman
Dent, Charlie Dent, Patty Solis Doyle, so grateful to have both of you and your voices here. We really value you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Christy.
Of course, thanks.
So 10 attorneys general want to know just how much counting the likes on Instagram is impacting